Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Scarbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. You'll have to excuse my voice. I'm a little hoarse. I caught my husband's cold. But I wanted to get on today and talk about the week ahead. This is the week from January 15th to the 22nd. And so we're going to review it. Now, I've done this for the first week. That first week we had the new moon in Capricorn. We also had Venus make her conjunction to the sun. We had a Mars square Neptune last week. So things have been happening all month so far. A lot of sense of like beginnings and also some crisis points that we've been dealing with. And we have seen in the outer world that more and more things are coming up. There's a sense of the rubber meeting the road. There's a sense of the tide turning. And this coming week is probably going to be the week that we look back at and say, oh, this is when the tide turned, because there are a lot of really big things coming up this week. And if you know where to look, as far as information that you're getting from the media, you'll really see what's going on here. So here we are at week 3, January 2022, January 16th to the 22nd. So I'm calling this week the big shift, where the shift hits the fan or something of that nature. On Sunday the 16th, we have the sun make its annual conjunction to Pluto. This happens every year when the sun moves into whatever sign Pluto happens to be inhabiting. Pluto will stay in a sign anywhere from 11 to 30 years, and the sun will stay in a sign for about a month. And so when the sun moves into the sign that one of the transpersonal planets, such as Pluto, comes into, it's as if it's making a connection to the energy of Pluto, which is the energy of transformation. But Pluto is the world soul, really. And where Pluto is in a chart or at a time is whatever that sign symbolizes. Pluto is here to go through the process of transformation of that. And so since Pluto moved in 2008, there has been a slow transformation, mostly a breakdown. There have been some things that have tried to correct the problems. And then as the powers that be come back and reinstitute things that don't really correct the problem. But ultimately, the longer you wait to correct a problem, like anything, like in a medical situation, or even with your car, you hear a little knock and you say, well, it's just a little knock. It's nothing. It's not nothing. There's no smoke coming out of the engine. You know, Pluto is patient, and Pluto is ultimate, and Pluto will take things down. And so these organizations, these large institutions, banking, education, governmental institutions, all these institutions are under a tremendous amount of stress, including big business. Of course, in that time of stress, big business Pluto can cause a rising, right? The powerful are more powerful. But this whole top-heavy idea cannot sustain itself. And eventually the people will come and will say, no, we're not going to agree to this. We're not going to agree to this paradigm. And so really the power is in the hands of the people and where they put their attention. And so it's very important for us to focus on those things we want to bring into our lives instead of worrying about what other people are doing, right? So, tend to our own garden. Now, this week, speaking of tending to our own garden, in 2 days from this Sun-Pluto conjunction, we're going to have the nodes of the moon shift into the North Node into Taurus. And so it's going to be about what we need, what's essential, what's important, what do we need for our survival? Those are the questions that are going to be asked of institutions to answer them and reorganize themselves so that we can actually have, we can create a better system, at the same time expelling the ghosts and if I might say the demons of the past, which is certainly what we see happening in the United States. Of course, the United States is going through a Pluto return. And where is that Pluto? That Pluto is at 28 degrees of Capricorn in the 1776 chart. Some people use a 1775 chart that is also Pluto, but at like 26 degrees of Capricorn. So this whole area of Capricorn has been getting activated. In 2020, it was activated by Pluto and Saturn, and then Pluto and Jupiter 3 times, right? So we have this onslaught of the systems, and something like the pandemic, what it can do is it can stress the system, so we see where the chinks are. And it's very obvious that the chinks is that we don't take care of the poor, and the whole thing with the large pharmaceutical companies not wanting to give patents, or not wanting to develop the technology for the new vaccines in places that can't pay them, like these countries, allows the pandemic to continue, while these companies, where they have the ability and the power to help people who need the help and bring this pandemic down, and eradicate it, just like you eradicate other pandemics have been eradicated, they keep siphoning off the top. And so it's really all about this, looking at the way these large companies and large institutions function, and who's really benefiting. Pluto is going to be going into Aquarius very shortly, and Aquarius is group consciousness. But we have to understand that and I think this is something we're going to understand as the nodes go through Saturn. Taurus and Scorpio, there's a choice between life and death here. Are you going to choose life, or are you going to choose death? Are you going to continue to live your life in a way that supports your destruction, or are you going to live your life in a way that supports an ability to work within systems, natural systems, Mother Nature, work with nature, and have the industrialization has brought us very, very far, but at what price? At what price to us? At what price to our children? Every time I see these things with the cancer, St. Jude's and all this other stuff, and I see all these little kids with bald heads, there's a part of, and I'm glad that these children have an opportunity to if they want that, to that level of scientific investigation. I think that the people who are trying to find the cures probably very much interested in doing just that, and of course, because of that, it will, but at what cost, right? What about these poor little kids? So there's a lot of money in sickness, and that is not any way to build a society. You can't just siphon off the money because people are sick. Sorry, I don't know how I got on that tangent. Anyway, let's continue. So here we have the start of a cyanotic cycle around the illumination of the world soul. Now the world soul is in Capricorn, but the soul evolves through its polarity point, and the polarity point of Capricorn is Cancer. And so Cancer is the direction that we collectively need to go to. And what is Cancer? It's about feeling. It's about nurturing. It's about women and children. It's about the family of man. It's about finding your tribe. It's about remembering that life is a gift and is not expendable. And it's more important, the individual person's life is more important than the institution's life. So we have the Cyanotic Cycle at 27 degrees of Capricorn, pilgrims climbing the steps, steep steps leading to a mountain shrine, the ascent of the individualized consciousness to the highest realizations reached by the spiritual leaders of its culture. It is man's supreme task to rise like fire, impelled by a vision they share with their companions. The keyword, upreaching. So we're being asked, the world soul, the symbol for this is being asked a question of rise up, for the soul to rise up, to have a shared vision. What do you want your shared vision to be? Is it life affirming? Ask the question. And over here we can see we have the conjunction of the sun and Pluto. We see Pallas Athena very closely conjunct this. And then at the same time, we have Mercury and Saturn. Mercury just turned retrograde last week, still in conjunction with Saturn. It's sort of moving away. It will come back over that place. We have Mars here, still in a square to Neptune. Last quarter, crisis in consciousness square, taking actions. These can be humanitarian actions. These can be actions for the good of all and not just for the pockets of the few. An opportunity. At the same time, we see how close the north and south nodes are to the end of their journey through Gemini and Sagittarius. What do you believe to be true? What beliefs have you had to let go of? What new information has come into your purview that you've had to integrate and communicate? What dualities have you seen? What have you become aware of? Right? That's all Gemini. At the same time, we have Jupiter square the nodes. And so when Jupiter squares the nodes, we want the truth. And part of the truth has to do with the beliefs that we've had around the past. Those are being challenged. What in America, what kind of country did you think you lived in? I know what country I thought I lived in. And then, little by little over the years, I came to understand a depth and a bittersweet and a often painful past that I had not, I'm a well-educated person. I went to 4 years of college. I went to 4 years of graduate school. And I found out more in the last, actually a few years since Trump became president, about the plight of Black America. Like I knew, but you're not like, you're not inundated with it. It's not your lived experience. And so you're not always aware. But then when these times come and somebody comes in and starts to press on what you believe, the truth does come out, on a certain level. And I almost don't want to say this, but I'll say it because it's come into my mind. We don't want anything rolling around too long up there. Perhaps Trump has drained the swamp and shown where all the swamp monsters are. And he's one of them. But, somebody who was just so primarily focused on themselves and doesn't really care what anybody thinks but themselves. They believe what they believe. This is really, even if it's a lie, it's their reality. And so these themes are coming up for people. What do you think is true? Is it a lie? Is it real? Right? All of these questions. And on a certain level, we create our own reality. So we can almost, step aside from a lot of this stuff and say, what, this is the reality I want to create. Perhaps he's teaching us that lesson. You can create your reality if you have enough people who pay attention to you. So that's a double-edged sword, right? Okay. So I thought what we could do is we could look at this chart. Now, this is the chart for the US. The other chart was an Aries rising chart, but this is where everything falls in the chart of the US. And this conjunction occurs in the 11th house for the United States. 11th house is the house of the Congress, the Senate, and the House is in that house. And so this is an opportunity for them to move forward, to do things, to get things done. We have Mars right at the top of the chart. Perhaps we can say that that 10th house in the chart is the house of the presidency. There is energy for that. And yet Venus is retrograde. So there's energy for the beliefs. Venus, the values, we're still trying to figure that out. We're still trying to figure things out here. If we look at, and then of course, we also have Mercury, which is retrograde, and Saturn, which is not, conjunct in that 11th house, a very, very busy 11th house, with Jupiter in the 12th house here. Jupiter in Pisces, that's Jupiter loves being in Pisces house, especially in Pisces. It's very powerful for healing. It's very powerful for healing. And with the North Node, like almost out of Gemini, but pointing in the direction of your neighborhood. What are you seeing happening in your neighborhood? What are you seeing, taking your eyes off perhaps the bigger world view? What are you seeing in front of you? Ceres here conjunct the North Node, Ceres in Taurus. What is being reaped? What's the fruits? And of course, we can't rule out Eris here, who's in a square to Pluto, a square to Juno, a square to the sun. We can't, and a trine, powerful trine to Mars. So there's a lot of energy for rebellion, but we can sort of, and chaos, along with an opportunity to do some really deep healing. Now, this cyanotic cycle lasts a year. So this is just seeding it. The action is yet to come. We'll see the action of this cyanotic cycle when the sun moves into Aries, because the sun will be, when the sun is in Aries, Pluto will still be in Capricorn. And towards the end of Aries, right before we get into Taurus, we'll have that first quarter square. So things that are happening and being planted at this time, there's going to be a big push of energy for action when it comes to that time of the year, May. With other stuff going on too, because we also have eclipses. And the North Node at that time will be in the sign of Taurus. So that sort of time of year, did I say late April. I might not have said that. Late April, when we get into Aries. And then we have eclipses as well. So there's a lot of energy for that sort of forward push. And we'll have an opportunity to do some healing. Now, if we look at this is the Sibley chart here on the right in the center circle. And this again is this Pluto Sun conjunction right on the Pluto of the United States. The Pluto of the United States first exact conjunction, Pluto to Pluto, first time ever, February 20th, 2022. 202022, guys. So one vibration, a new beginning. We also have in this chart, we have Mercury retrograde conjunct the south node of the United States chart, a rethinking of the history, a rethinking of the revolution. We also can't forget that much of this Pluto energy is been in opposition to Mercury. And Mercury is our ability to communicate. And Pluto is about control. And there's been some controls put on our ability to communicate what we think. Even here on YouTube, things have gotten very, very tight and very strict. When I first got on YouTube, you know, you could pretty much say anything. And so, which, you know, is another double-edged sword. But then they started to make things thinner and thinner for like your ability to reach people became more concentrated and they had more control over it. So we can see that happening. One of the things that they can't control, though, is what's in our hearts and our ability to work from our energetic centers. Okay, and so we need to stay grounded in really love through this whole process. Okay, Monday the 17th, we have the full moon in Cancer. Now, a full moon is always a very highly emotional time. The tides are highest. Cancer is a sign that's ruled by the moon. So when the moon is in Cancer, you're really, really feeling things. And it's opposite Pluto and the sun, which just made their conjunction. Conjunct Pluto of the US. I was watching Democracy Now! Today, and there was a gentleman who wrote a book. I'll be right back. I'm gonna tell you what that book is. I just have to pause. I'll be right back. So they did two segments that were very, very informative and very interesting. A lot on like what is coming to our attention. That's what full moons do, right? Bring something like the light of the full moon. Go out on a night with a full moon, it's almost like daytime. You can see things, and so in the darkness. And so that's what the full moon does. The full moon brings up things that, and we're not seeing them quite clear because it's still the moonlight. But we can see things we couldn't see before when we have a full moon. And there were two segments. One was, actually there were three segments. It was a great Democracy Now! For January 13th. If you can go on Democracy Now! And check these out. One of them was The Coming Coup, Ari Berman on the Republican efforts to steal future elections. Then there was Confessions of a Human Guinea Pig, Professor quits vaccine trials over Moderna's corporate greed. He put himself as a guinea pig, what he calls as a guinea pig, as because it was the right thing to do, because they needed people to test the vaccine on and such. And now they're very successful, these vaccines, so they're making so much money. And this guy's like, hey, if you're going to use us as guinea pig, this has to help everybody. I did this for this reason. And so that's very interesting. And then we also have somebody named John Nichols, who wrote on how coronavirus criminals and pandemic profiteers hurt the world's response to COVID-19. So it talks about, again, how these certain segment of the population is making a lot of money off this pandemic, and if greed is the reason, then what's going to stop them from ever really ending it? It's sort of like the war on cancer. If cancer was cured, and there are cure for cancers out there, but if cancer was cured, they would be losing a whole lot of money. And it's the same idea with the COVID stuff, except that it's more, I think, for the pharmaceuticals. This is for entertainment purposes only, by the way. For the pharmaceutical companies, it's more of as long as COVID's around, we can make some money off of it instead of utilizing the technology that much of was paid through the government. The government pays for research and development, and the profiteers at these pharmaceutical companies just rake in the dough, and they don't pay back they're not giving the money or the resources or the patents to the government that actually paid for it. So it's a really messed up system. And of course, this is all part of the Pluto thing, right? Pluto illuminating all of this. Well, when the moon's involved, the people get to see it. And so we're going to be seeing just how depraved and greedy people are if they're allowed to use the system in this way. And that's part of the reason that we're here to bring the systems under more of a collective control for the people, by the people. And that's why democracy, it's another reason why democracy is being attacked, because democracy is one person, one vote, and it is by the people and for the people. And if democracy prevails, then the people prevail. But if democracy doesn't, then the authoritarians prevail. Now, will they ultimately fail? Perhaps. But there'll be a lot more pain and suffering to get there. Okay, let me continue on this. So the sun at 28 degrees of Capricorn, a large aviary. The keynote is the enjoyment of spiritual values by the soul, able to familiarize itself with their implications. Birds symbolize spiritual forces, and the aviary presents us with a picture of these forces or desires contained within a mind open to the light of psychic or soul realities and bringing joy and harmony to the consciousness. This is about perhaps listening to those voices in your head, or listening to those voices in your head and your heart. What do you think? What do you feel? What's going on with you? Are you afraid? Why are you afraid? It's an opportunity maybe to face your fears. Opposing the moon in Cancer at 28 degrees of Cancer, an Indian girl introduces her white lover to her assembled tribe. Inner rebirth through total acceptance of the primordial values manifested in the human body and its natural function. A return to nature. A return to nature. We have everything we need on this planet to cure ourselves. There's whole there's organizations and whole ways of thinking that you can go in your backyard and everything growing in your backyard, assuming it's not procured. But even the procured stuff, everybody's trying to get rid of their dandelions. Dandelions are they what do you call the liver? They detoxify the liver. The liver is where we hold our anger. I love dandelions. I think they're adorable. And when they grow in my garden, when I know nothing's peed on them, except for maybe a squirrel or two, I'll use them in salads. They're very, very good, very high in vitamin C. They're very, very good for you. They're bitter. Bitter is good, especially if you eat a lot of sugar. And, in America here, we're certainly addicted to sugar. So, there's all kinds of things available to us through Mother Nature. And we have the wisdom. We have the wisdom. And so, maybe Moderna and Pfizer can make more vaccines, but Mother Nature has everything we need too. And we may not be at the place where we can totally depend on Mother Nature at this time because for whatever reason, you don't have availability, things aren't organic, you don't have control over what's, your food as much as you would like to have. That all has a bearing. But we can work together with the technology we have and the nature that is available to us. And this is a realization, I think, with this new moon, full moon. And we can see here we have the moon in Cancer opposing Pluto and the sun. And again, here's Juno. And look over here, we have a conjunction between Pallas Athena, the goddess of social justice and government, conjunct Neptune. This is pandemic response right here, but this is also compassion. Compassion for the least of us. What you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. The words of Jesus. And here we have the full moon. This is for the US. We have a Leo rising, so the sun is important. It's the ruler of this chart, and the sun is in the 6th house of service to others. We have a crisis in our hospitals and our healthcare system. That is going to become very obvious. How much longer can we expect these people to work under these circumstances and not break down themselves, either physically, mentally, or emotionally, or all three? It's all three. While the profiteers make money and the crazies scoop in the money because they're saying that we're doing this for you, for your freedom and your freedom of choice. At the same time, they're trying to steal elections. Here we have this on the United States, and we have, of course, Pluto, the sun, and then the moon will be right over here, conjunct Jupiter. It's actually right here, the moon. It just gets dropped off of this chart. Not conjunct Jupiter, conjunct Mercury. And Mercury is retrograde at this time, and the United States has a Mercury retrograde if you use the Sibley chart. So Mercury retrograde periods for the United States are very important because we get a lot of information that way through introspection and moving it through our filters. The next day, January 18th, we have Uranus making a direct station at 11 degrees of Taurus. Uranus is the planet of sudden change. And when these outer planets change direction, they build up a lot of power. In fact, as we sit here at this time, and I'm at the end of, today is the 13th, so we're still 5 days away from this. For the most part, Uranus is stationary. It's still inching ahead or whatever it's doing, but it's moving very, very slowly. And as that happens, and then it stops, and then it starts its forward motion again. All of that built up energy of a planet of change and transformation, changing direction. After Pluto conjoins the sun, and after we have the full moon, and right before the nodes of the moon shift. This is a big thing, a big time, a big shift. 11 degrees of Taurus, a woman watering her flowers in her garden. Development of the powers of the mind over which ego consciousness is based. Keyword: cultivation. What are you cultivating in your garden? Separation, distrust, conspiracy, or love, healing, oneness, compassion. Pluto's polarity point in Cancer says we must feel. And this full moon, the moon, is at the polarity point of Cancer, is at the polarity point of Pluto. What are you planting and what are you nurturing? That's the question. Now, if we look at now this is the chart right here with Jupiter stationing. What else is going on here? Well, it's still in a pretty tight square to Saturn. Did I say Jupiter? I meant Uranus. It's in a tight square to Saturn. It's in a tight square to Mercury retrograde. In fact, if we look, I bet the midpoint is very close to exact here. So the midpoint of Mercury and Saturn. Now, Mercury and Saturn is going to start a cyanotic cycle once Mercury goes retrograde and then comes back over when it makes a conjunction to Saturn. And I think that's happening in February. That's going to be a new cyanotic cycle between Mercury and Saturn. Mercury is information coming in. Saturn is hard, cold reality. And so it's like we need another sweep of hardcore reality before we really see what needs to be done. So this is a tenuous and a difficult time. And we need to focus our intentions and our energy on what we want to build. Don't get pulled off your center with this. We're moving through the storm. We're moving through the storm here. And of course, we have the transiting nodes shifting into Taurus and Scorpio. This is starting a new program towards our collective conscious evolution. The ruler of Taurus, the Taurus North Node, is Venus retrograde at 14 degrees of Capricorn. The interesting thing about that is right around that degree is the South Node of the planet Pluto. Pluto is our collective soul. The South Node of Pluto is what we're trying to release, where we've come from. The North Node of Pluto is in Cancer. The North Node of Pluto is in Cancer. The polarity point of the present Pluto is in Cancer. So this is a time when we must feel and take care of each other. The ruler of the North Node, this should say South Node in Scorpio, or Mars and Sag. Mars at 26 degrees of Sag, which is conjunct the galactic center, and Pluto at 28 degrees of Capricorn, which of course is where the United States Pluto sits. So this transformation, this change, this shift that's happening in this country, my country, the United States, it's also things are happening in many of the democracies. It is a battle between the rights of equality for one and for many, or for just a few. We're moving into the direction of our essential needs, our relationship to ourselves, peace, stability, simplicity. Keep it simple. We are letting go of indebtedness, chaos, complications, enmeshment, controlling behavior, revenge, and emotional hell. Sabian symbol for Venus at 14 degrees of Capricorn, right? The ruler. An ancient bas relief carved in granite remains a witness to a long forgotten culture. The will to unearth in our culture, as well as in any culture, what has permanent value, and to let go of non-essentials. The North Node in Taurus is going to point out to us what is essential and what we need to survive this. The Sabian symbol for Mars at 26 degrees of Sagittarius is a flag bearer in a battle. Says the nobly accepted subservience of the individual to collective values and goals. That's the South Node, though, isn't it? South Node for 28 degrees of Capricorn, a large aviary, the enjoyment of spiritual values by the soul, able to familiarize itself with their implications. Listening to the voices in your head, listening to the voices in your heart. What are you willing to stand up for? What does your country stand for? Is it in alignment with what you stand for? Does it matter? Does it all come down to the individual? Well, countries are made up of individuals. At some point, we're all going to have to figure out what it is that we want. Otherwise, fate will show us what, well, we're going to have to figure out what we want. And I feel like fate's going to show us what we need. We can't always get what we want. But when you try, sometimes you just might find you get what you need. I love that song. Here's the ingress. This is the ingress 4 happening in the U.S. So, I mean, it happens it's happening at the same time. It happens, it's a moment in time, but it's going to be different according to where you live. That's what I want to say. We have a Gemini rising for this chart. We have Mars in the 7th house of friends and partners and open enemies. So allies and open enemies. Maybe a renegotiation of that. Mars is very close to the United States. Mars, we can see that. Let me see here. In an opposition to the United States, Mars. See that? This is the US chart again. Here we have, for the US, the nodes, the North Node is in the 12th house. The South Node is in the 6th house. What do we need to let go of? This is health and welfare. This is also the military here, moving towards what? 12th house. Spirit, or things that are hidden. Maybe we don't see what's coming. Yeah, so let's keep going. And then the next day, January 19th, the sun ingresses into Aquarius. And this is the degree that in 2020, Saturn and Jupiter made a conjunction, one of those every 20-year conjunctions. The last time it happened was in 2000 in Taurus. And this time that it happened at 1 degree of Aquarius. So this goes back to December of 2020, kind of bringing us back. Every time the sun moves into Aquarius, that will happen. Anytime anything moves into Aquarius, it will happen. And certainly when Pluto moves into that 1st degree of Aquarius, something from 2020 is going to rise up again, and we will see what that is. It says, Noel Adobe mission in California, the power inherent in all great human works to endure far beyond the worker's lifespan. It says the works of the spirit of the Spanish priests who directed the building of the California missions have had a lasting effect on the development of this land. These remain as a monument to the men who were able to make their mark upon this alien environment. While the zodiacal sign Capricorn begins with a symbol of socio-political power, Aquarius, as it starts, presents a more spiritualized and idealistic or creative picture of the social forces at work. Moreover, it stresses the enduring character of human achievements, ensouled by a great vision. It's asking you to have a vision, okay? At least within the frame of reference of our Western civilization, the symbol speaks of a projection of a noble ideal into a concrete form of beauty and significance, thus the radiation of a civilizing power into the institution, offering to primitive men the opportunity to reach a higher, more organized and productive level of activity. Or so said the missionaries. I'm sure the natives didn't necessarily see it that way, or it wasn't their experience. The concretization of an ideal. This also implies the immortalization of the individual within a greater collective and cultural enterprise. So this is about putting our individual needs. I mean, Aquarius, Capricorn Aquarius is the process of individuation, of, no longer actually going by the rules and being a part and parcel to creating the rules, but they need to be rules that raise all boats, because that's what Aquarius is about. It's about raising all boats in its positive sense. In its negative sense, we don't want to go there, really. Don't really want to go there. I mean, we could talk about it on another time, but we need to focus on what we want to create, period, end of story. Okay. So it's going to be quite the week, guys. I hope that this was clear to you and you learned something, and you can comment below. Excuse me. This does take a lot of throat power, so I apologize. What I want to say to all of you is that we are not powerless. We have within ourselves the spark of the divine. We have within ourselves a connection, a deep, abiding connection with the earth from which we sprang and from which we walk upon. And bringing those two powers together occurs in the heart. And that's where we need to come from. Harmony through conflict is a fourth ray, human, heart-centered experience. We are here to love. We are here to love. And loving doesn't necessarily mean you get everything you want. It generally means you get what you need. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe. For those of you who have sent me Christmas gifts and donations, thank you so very much. It's so much appreciated. For my students out there, I am going to be starting the second half of my beginners class. I was going to be scheduling that for this coming Monday, the 17th, but I may extend it to the next week just because of my voice. I want to make sure I'm in good voice to get started with you folk. And you will be getting an email from me if anyone is interested in any of my readings or my classes. Right now, at this moment, I am just having a part 2 of my beginners class, and I have an ongoing Tuesday evening astrology salon. That's what I'm calling it, where we look at charts and talk about current events and things like that. That's $25 a person, and you can pay per class if you want, or you can pay for 6 classes up front, and you would save like $20. So it's like instead of $150, it's $130. You save a little money, but the option is yours. So, okay, guys, much love, and hopefully you'll be seeing me and Marianne soon. We talked about doing something, I think in February. So, all right, guys, much love, everyone. Take care. Namaste.